Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, brought to you in association with Bet365. This is normally your weekly rundown of all things jump racing, but this week we bring you a very special episode because, of course, this is our Cheltenham Festival preview episode. I cannot wait to get stuck in to all the championship races, all the grade ones and lots of others on top of that with, as always, Tony Keenan and Barry Geraghty. A special long edition for you today, and we're going to give you loads of winners, hopefully. Like how optimistic I am at this point. Tony Keenan, how are you ahead of the biggest week of the jump racing year?
Yeah, pretty good. This all feels very novel, really, because there's not many preview nights this year. They've all kind of gone online. There seems to be, very few rumours about horses doing brilliant pieces of work, shocking pieces of work. When people are doing them online, they don't want to say anything too controversial because we know what stuff that's online's on there forever. We found that out in the last week or two. So yeah, that's been kind of interesting and possibly not that big of a miss, really. So you can just get stuck in and look at the form, look at the videos, look at whatever you're looking at. But so this is something pretty new.
A different year altogether indeed. And Barry, for you, it really is a different year. First year in a very long time that you won't be actually riding at the Cheltenham Festival. How have you enjoyed the build-up, or have you had a moment where you've thought, geez, I wish I was still riding? I mean, where's your headspace at this point?
No, I'm enjoying it more than I thought. And although I'd love to say I would love to be riding, which I would, but I suppose I wasn't up for the commitment of the other 51 weeks of the year, so I'm really looking forward to it. So no, I can't wait for the kick-off.
Great, well neither can I, and so without further ado, let's get stuck into the championship races. And of course we're going to start with the Champion Hurdle on the first day. Barry Geraghty won it last year, so aren't we lucky to have him with us today? And this time around, Epatante is currently 130 with Bet365 to regain her crown. She has to take on a completely different field this time around. She's got the likes of Honeysuckle, who's your 9-4 favourite. Goshen is at 130 as well. And there's loads in there that you can make cases for. Barry, straight over to you. Can she win a second Champion Hurdle, despite the fact that this race is very different to what she had to encounter last year?
I think she can, and probably the main reason for it was soft ground last year when she won it, and we were very worried about that. And she even surprised me on the day. I thought she was going to struggle, but she managed, she coped, and she won impressively. It's good to soft at the minute, and I spoke with Simon Clace earlier today. He said they're forecast 15 to 20 mils this coming week. He thinks it'll be good to soft on the day. Doesn't expect he'll have to water, so I think that's a big thing in her favour. For me, it gives her the edge over Honeysuckle, good to soft rather than soft. It was soft to heavy when Honeysuckle won in Leopardstown so impressively. So for me, she has the class. She's last year's winner. Of the race itself, I think Sharjah and Silver Streak have gone out to very backable each way prices. I think they're two horses with good rock solid form. Sharjah struggled with the very soft ground in Leopardstown last time, so I'd forgive him that. He's good course form, and he's got good top level form in Leopardstown over the last few years. He's a 3-time winner of the Christmas Hurdle against good opposition, so I think there are two horses at fancy prices, but no, for me Epatante is the one to beat.
And just before I move on to Tony, one last question on Epatante. Obviously, you're still very close to Nicky Henderson, and of course the big question mark over her is, has Nicky got her back to her best? What vibe have you picked up from the great man?
Yeah, well, I spoke to him last week, and he seems very happy with her. So he didn't elaborate any more than that, but he's very happy with her, so can't ask for much more, I suppose.
Okay, well, it's Epatante for Barry. It's Epatante for me as well, for basically all the points Barry has already noted. Tony, are you looking at Epatante or are you looking elsewhere, please?
No, I think taking on the Kempton form of Christmas will be my way into it. Silver Streak is probably a bit flattered because he's met a below par Epatante, and Epatante herself has to get back to form, and as you've said, face a much different field, and I think a deeper field, a better field than she faced last year. Barry's point about the ground, I suppose, as well made. They were watering at Leopardstown today, and good was in the going description. But the last time good was in the going description in Ireland prior to today, Sunday, was Cork in October. So it really has been that soft to heavy winter in Ireland basically the whole way through. But sometimes we make the assumption that, drying out, it won't suit the Irish horses. I think history shows that isn't really the case. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity to run it, and they'll often kind of improve for it. So I'm not so sure that Honeysuckle won't be suited by good to soft, or maybe a little bit softer if that 15 to 20 mils comes in. I don't have a massively strong opinion on the race just yet. I think Henry de Bromhead is a strong hand. I've already backed Aspire Tower. I still think he can improve a little bit. Now, whether he'll improve enough to win it will be another thing. I think Jason de Middleton put his hat in the ring a little bit at Fairy House last week. He's a bit overpriced possibly as well. But look, you don't have to have a selection now, and I would sort of say that to people. There is a week to go to Cheltenham. A lot can happen. Horses can get ruled in, get ruled out, and we will know the exact makeup of the field. If a front runner was to come out, would that shake the thing up? And the pace is going to be a big part of this. An awful lot of front runners there. You've Honeysuckle potentially up there, Goshen, Aspire Tower, Jason de Middleton, Silver Streak. But they're also some of the best horses. So this might be a case where the pace might actually stick. I don't know if I'll be making the case for something that's going to be dropped out completely, trying to get by all of these good horses. The suspicion would be that 1 or 2 or 3 of them will stay at it. Yeah, so I'd be leaning the Henry de Bromhead way at the moment, but just haven't come down on which one it'll be.
Well, as you rightly say, Tony, nearer the time we see horses drop in and out of these races, and one of the really gutting moments of last year was, of course, when Chacun Pour Soi had to be pulled out on the day. But this time around, he is a red-hot favourite for the Champion Chase. He's now 5-4 on with Bet365. Altior next best in the betting at 7-1. Is he the not forgotten horse, but can he make this big comeback? You've got the improver with Nube Negra in the Champion Chase at 8-1. And then the reigning champion with Politolog. I thought it was interesting, actually. All 4 championship races have last year's winner coming back to try and retain a crown, and in the form of the Gold Cup and the Champion Hurdle, you have a very relatively short-priced horse coming back, whereas in the Champion Chase, Politolog is currently 9-1, and yet he's the reigning Champion Chaser, but I personally can't see him winning it this time around. Barry, I thought it was interesting when I was cutting actually a Willie Mullins interview. One of the things if I'm trying to pick holes in Chacun Pour Soi, and it is slightly picking holes, I have this sort of niggling doubt about the hill at Cheltenham and coming up the hill, and can he act there? And our presenter actually put that to Willie, and he laughed. He actually laughed in the presenter's face with a wry smile, and the presenter said, "Do you have any concerns about Cheltenham and the hill?" And he laughed, and then with a wry smile he said, "No, none at all." And then there was just an awkward silence. So that put me in my box as well. Barry, in terms of, can you pick any holes in Chacun Pour Soi? Are you as confident as Willie seems to be?
I am, definitely. I think he's a class act. Jumps, travels, he's got size, scope, everything. And people say he doesn't finish, but he seems to hit a little bit of a flat spot, as he did the last day from 2 out in Leopardstown. But from the last of the line, he was bombing and he galloped through the line. So I think he finishes out well, but he probably travels and maybe deceives people how much he's going to quicken because he travels so strongly, but doesn't quicken, and maybe takes a little bit of time before he really gets into top gear. But it's more relentless than anything. So no, he's rock solid, and I think it'd be very hard to beat. The opposition, I don't think they're capable to put it up to him really. I can't have Politolog. It worked out to be an average Champion Chase last year. His form has been, he got turned over on Ascot. He hasn't done anything exceptional, whereas for me Chacun Pour Soi has been exceptional, and Altior would be the horse I would give a little chance to chase him home, just because he has that top level form in the book. I believe Nicky mentioned he might put cheek pieces on him, which would be no harm. That would make his jumping slicker, which would help, but it'd be very hard to see a horse of his age coming to beat Chacun Pour Soi. No, he's probably one of the bets of the week.
Right, Barry, all over Chacun Pour Soi. Tony, do you find any value elsewhere? Put the kettle on, it's 12-1 with Bet365. Anything further down the betting that takes your fancy here?
There's 1 or 2 would be interesting maybe in the place markets, the without markets, but I think the favourite is perfectly reasonable price. Like, he's the same price as Shishkin is in the Arkle, and yet Shishkin has taken on a potentially top class rival. Chacan Bourgeois isn't taking on the top class rival. Altior obviously of 2 seasons would have been that horse, so you can make an argument with that. The track might be a little bit of a red herring. Willie Mullins is saying that. Yeah, I totally get that. He could have £7 or £10 in hand on these, so yeah, I think he's pretty fair. Like you've said there, Political won a moderate enough champion chase last year. It fell apart. Don't really like his preparation. Altior's jumping would be a worry for me, the way he's just continually ballooning fences, and he could get away with that as a younger horse, but maybe not so much now. Yeah, Put the Kettle On, brilliant record of Arkle winners coming back here and running well, hitting the frame, winning. I think she's a place chance, as does Silius Emery if he pitches up, but no, to me, if Chacan Bourgeois can reproduce his form of elsewhere at this track, and it's not a case that he hasn't handled the track. There's one thing opposing a horse that's run badly at Cheltenham before, but he just hasn't had the opportunity. So I think he'll probably win. Yeah.
3 votes for Chacan Bourgeois. How incredibly boring, you viewers must be thinking, but a winner's a winner, hey? Viewers, get involved. What do you fancy for the champion chase? Do you think Chacan Bourgeois can be beaten, or is he the second coming? What do you fancy at a bigger price? And for the champion hurdle as well, a much more wide open affair at this stage. What do you like? Please do get involved. Write in the comments box. You all know the drill by now. Let's move on to the Stayers Hurdle, which is, again, sort of very wide open in terms of you can make cases for plenty of them. You've got Paisley Park at 3-1. You've got Time Hill at 3-1. You've got Sara de Burle at 7-1. Roxana at 7-1. Flooring Porter at 10-1. And the Storyteller now at 11-1, Tony Keenan. And you tipped him up on this a long time ago, on Off the Fence, a long time ago. Are you still with him? Do you still like the look of him in this race?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, I suppose with these anti-post bets, horses that you back from way out, it does colour your interpretation of the race. It's sometimes hard to park that if you run something at a reasonable price. Re-looking at the race, there's always that little bit of bias in you. That's something that people maybe need to be aware of. Yeah, but I still think he's perfectly fair, actually, at that price. My way into the race is fairly straightforward. I think as a group, staying chasers are better than staying hurdlers. They usually are. They look like they are at the moment. The Storyteller's in there mixing it with some of these staying chasers and acquitting himself very, very well. He's in the form of his life. He's improved out of nowhere, having, I think he's 34, 35 starts at this stage into his career. But proven Cheltenham Festival pedigree, ran very well over the course and distance last year. Thought things didn't just work out for him at Christmas time when he did go back over hurdles, and I'd be quite happy with him that he's the one of the front 5 or 6 in the race that is the most overpriced, and I don't really want to get stuck in that now. He'll do me.
Happy days, he'll do you indeed. 11-1 with Bet365, the Storyteller for Tony. Barry, we've been speaking about this division sort of from way early on this season, because of course we saw the clash between Paisley Park and Time Hill before the new year twice. And at the moment, well, Paisley Park 3-1, Time Hill 3-1. Are you siding with those two at the top of the market, or are you also looking elsewhere?
No, I'd be with the top 2, and I think they are the 2 to beat, obviously, but I'm a big fan of Time Hill and have been all season, but I thought the way Paisley Park won at Ascot, having been hit a bit of traffic, you could say, turning in, and looked to be well beaten, but yet he came home with that trademark finish and did Time Hill just on the run to the line. So I think he would have been an unlucky loser on the day if he had been. So for me, he's just, the way he finishes his races, I just doubt Time Hill. He travels really well, if anything, too well through his races, and I'd just be afraid that he won't conserve enough for the death, whereas Paisley Park races lazily behind the bridle. He's been there, he's done it, and being honest, at 3-1 I think he's good value, because he's the class act of the race for me. There's no holes in him. If he reproduces the level of form he showed there, I don't see anything beat him.
And any word on Sara de Burle at all? Would you know him well? Is he a horse that you think could step up to this sort of level, or lacks the class at this stage?
He has a chance. He won the Pretemps last year with top weight, which takes, that's a big performance in itself.
Yeah, but he did have you on board, Barry, so that really helped him.
That's a very good point, Vanessa. Very good, yeah. I won't dwell on that. But he's his run at Christmas isn't good enough, but Summer Gardens weren't just firing at the time. So if you forget that run, you can make a case for him, but you're making a case for him. He hasn't proved it at the top level. And I think if he can, he could run into third maybe, but for me it's the top 2, and they'll be the first 2 home.
Okay, well, if we were all united with Shaq and Poursoir in the Champion Chase. We're all divided here. Got a vote for Paisley Park, a vote for the Storyteller, and I'm a big Paisley Park fan, but I'm very sat on the fence. That's literally what we're not supposed to do on this show, but I'm leaving the Stayers Hurdle for the time being because it's just too wide open for me. I will make my decision nearer the time. Viewers, what do you think? Are you with Paisley Park, the horse who's been there and done it, Time Hill, the sort of young pretender, or the chaser going back, hurdling in the Storyteller? Do get involved. Let us know. Let's move on to the Gold Cup, the big one. Here we go. Can Album Photo win a third Gold Cup? Tony, tell me, please.
I hope not. I hope Henry. I hope. I feel I'm going to be back in like 20 Henry de Bromhead horses this week. But anyway, Plutard. I'm going to stick with him. I don't think he's going to fail for stamina. Looking at Leopardstown at Christmas, I think he might fail for ability. He may not be good enough, but I think he proved the stamina at Leopardstown with how he finished in a really attritionally run race. I get the point that it was a little bit set up for him with the two Mullins horses kicking on halfway down the back, but he was also ridden to get the trip and made up a hell of a lot of ground from 3 out. He has a bit of a Cheltenham pedigree. Look, is there any massive juice in his price at the moment? There's probably not, because I do think the race, a few of the other ones have fallen out of it a little bit. Like Manella Indo didn't really enhance his reputation in February time, and Lost in Translation wasn't able to get back on track on one thing and another. But I would be quite happy with him as the young horse, the up and coming horse that hasn't tried the trip yet. That there is that potential with him. Look, Santini would be a horse there if he came back to the form of last year. Like, you could definitely make a case that he could have won the Gold Cup last year if it had been more truly run. Though I do think himself and Album Photo just would have pulled further clear. Which of the two would have won is another thing. Just doesn't look the same horse this year. Admittedly under a lot of unsuitable tests, but Champ, we talked about him before. He's in the mix. I just wonder about him being maybe racing a little bit lit up, but hard to knock what he did preparation wise, otherwise, and again proven Cheltenham form. But I'm quite happy to stick with a Plutard and win him from the start, and hopefully he'll get there in one piece and do himself justice.
And can I just ask you, in terms of the Album Photo fans that are hoping he does win a third Gold Cup, how much of a discussion do you think it's worth having about the style in which last year's race was won and run? Do you think that this year is going to be completely different, Tony? And if so, will he still be able to deliver?
Well, the first Gold Cup he won was a 30-run race, so I don't think there's any real worries about him on that score. Now it's facing maybe the up-and-coming horses, the Champs, the Plutards, Manella Indo, if he comes back maybe to what he was showing last year. Are they just going to be better than him? Pace-wise, it would look like a race that's going to be a bit more truly run than last year with Native River back on some sort of form, though. Whether he can go quite the pace on goodish ground versus dry out, I'm not so sure. Frodon is in there as well. But yeah, I think it'll be ability rather than run of the race that Album Photo could get found out on. I think to be fair to him, he really has shown his versatility in the last 2 seasons.
That's interesting. So you're sticking with a improving type. Barry, Champ is currently 5-1 with Bet365 off the back of the unique preparation over the 2 miles. We've discussed it before. What do you now make of that, looking ahead to the race at this stage?
Well, I think it was a great indication of his well-being and his jumping as well, because if he lined up in that race 12 months ago instead of the RSA, he'd have been lapped and he probably would have galloped into most of the fences the way around. So he jumped brilliantly. He seemed a different horse. He was just better in himself, happier in himself. So for me, he jumped really well, long and short, whereas it was all short in the RSA last year. There wasn't an option to go long. For whatever reason, he must have been just feeling something. He wasn't himself anyway. But I thought he was really good in Newbury, and I think, as I said, it's a good indication of his well-being. Now, you can argue the case that the run over 2 miles might just light him up, which it possibly will, but it was also his first run as well, so you'd like to think maybe that might just have taking a little bit of gas out of the cylinder too. It's going to be run at a good pace, as Tony mentioned. You Frodon, Native River, Minolindo is going to be handy as well. So I think there'll be a good bit of pace. If he can switch off somewhere in the middle, I think he's a big shout, and he's the biggest danger on the book to Album Photo. But I'd agree also with Tony on Santini, because having spoken to Nicky, he's very sweet on him to run a big race, and he forgives him his run in Sandown last time. He thinks the ground was just way too heavy for him. Says he wants better ground, and he's proven on the course. He won the Cotswolds and he was second in the Gold Cup last year, so he's probably a good each way play. But I think Champ is the class horse that Album Photo has to deal with.
So you're with Champ then, Barry? That's your selection for a win anyway?
I would be, but I would have a little reservation about him settling, that he needs to switch off. But there's enough pace, I think he should be able to switch off. So I would be with Champ.
Champ for you. Album Photo for me, please. I'm sticking with the reigning champion. And a Plutard for Tony. There you go. That is your Gold Cup. Viewers, do get involved. What do you fancy in the Gold Cup? As we have made a case for there, you can make a case for many of these. Santini getting a positive nod from Barry at 12-1 with Bet365, and there's plenty more in there. But yeah, it's the favourite for me, so that's pretty unoriginal. But on that note, then we can move on to the Grade 1 Novice Hurdles. Now, we did discuss this on last week's episode of Off the Fence. We did have an anti-post look at these big Grade 1 races, so do go back there for a slightly more detailed look, but we're going to rattle through them again in case we have any more added thoughts. So, Barry, over to you in the Supreme. Who are you fancying here? Are you sticking with Appreciate It? There does seem to be a sort of push to take Appreciate It on in some corners of the social media world, which I don't think we should all take as gospel at this stage. But Barry, are you with him or are you against him? And if you're against him, who are you with, please? Just recap.
Yeah, no, I'd be slightly against him. I think Soaring Glory and Ballyadam are the two pace options. Ground, if it is good to soft as Simon thinks it will be, I think it's going to be sharp enough for him. He won on soft to heavy over 2 miles, and he looked like he needed a test of stamina. So I think he is vulnerable. And for me, Soaring Glory showed good pace when he won in Newbury. He went from 133 to 143, which is only £5 below Meteor, who's well fancied. So I think Soaring Glory is a good each way, or Ballyadam, but Soaring Glory would be the one I'd go at.
Interesting. I went the other way. I quite like the look of Ballyadam in this. Can I just ask you a quick question about Metier? We haven't mentioned him. We didn't mention him last week on the show, and you haven't mentioned him again there. He's currently 6-1 with Bet365. Is there any reason we're all swerving him?
And well, he won the Talbot on heavy ground, and for me it was workmanlike. That was a step up from what he'd done beforehand. But it didn't just excite me. The form of the race was only okay. I think it was a below standard Grade 1.
There you go. Okay. Tony, any further thoughts on the Supreme other than what we spoke about last week? Are you you're with Appreciate It, aren't you?
No, I've got nothing on this. Horse I fancied the Devil's Coachman's been taken out this evening, so yeah, I find Appreciated one of the most interesting horses of the week. Fascinated to see what he does in the market, fascinated to see what he does on the track, but I've got nothing at the minute. I'm going to need to relook at this one.
Absolutely fine. Barry, since last week, you have changed your view in the Ballymore. You and Tony were in agreement with Bob Ollinger last week, and at the time, 7 days ago, he was 4-1 second favourite with Bet365 for the Ballymore, Bob Ollinger. He is now 11-4 with Bet365, and part of that is because there was a market move after Jamie Codd tipped him up. He didn't just tip him up, he called him a God-given certainty on the At The Races official preview night that he did with John Hunt, Matt Chapman and Kevin Blake. And so as a result, there was a pretty big market shift. It has levelled itself out, but now Barry, since Jamie tipped him up, you're abandoning Bob Ollinger, I hear.
Well, I didn't catch on Jamie what he said, but yeah, Bob Ollinger, he was good in Nace, but I thought Blue Lord was the horse to take out of that race. He ran so keen and still finished a good second. I don't dislike Bob Ollinger, but I suppose the strength in this division just didn't really excite me. But just when I look back on Gaillard de Mesnil in Leopardstown, he travelled nicely, he jumped slick, and albeit that Paul had to work a little bit to challenge at the last, he pulled right away and he won well, but he just struck me as a horse who might appreciate nice ground as well. He's a good moving horse, and I thought it's interesting. Willie is left appreciated in the Ballymore, although he's fully committed to the Supreme, but yet he took Gaillard de Mesnil out of the Albert Bartlett, and he's committed to the Ballymore. So he doesn't think there's any problem with him dropping back in trip. So a couple of things like that just pointed, and I just went on him because I'm not so certain that the opposition are as strong, and this fella could just be very good.
Like it. Good insight. Like that a lot. In the Albert Bartlett, this is a much more wide open affair when it comes to the novice hurdle division, the grade ones. We've got Statler as 5-1 favourite at the moment, and then there's lots of horses in there that you can make a case for, including Barbados Bucks for Paul Nicholls. I was actually down at Paul Nicholls' yard this week, and I was quite surprised about how positive they were about their other runner, 3 under through 5. Both Barbados Bucks and 3 under through 5 come in here with very similar profiles, but Barbados Bucks seems to have, maybe does bring a slightly higher level of form, but he seems to have also caught the attention of a good few. And as a result, he's currently 9-1 the betting, whereas 3 under through 5 is as big as 20s. So on that evidence, I came away and I looked at 3 under through 5, and I quite like the look of him in this race, just at a bigger price, an each way shout, I think you could say. But yeah, he was the one I sided with in the end. Tony, which way were you going here? And yeah, what is a pretty wide open contest?
Yeah, the problem with 3 under through 5 or 6 or whatever his name is, he's trained in England. I know I am only joking about that, but look, I did want. I don't really have an opinion on this race, but I do want to bring this in. There has been this massive shift in the last few years. I haven't put up an English horse for anything yet, and I'm not going to be. I just about to get that in now. And I suppose in one way that's because I do specialise in watching a lot of Irish racing and wouldn't be that up in the English form, but. Like it realistically isn't played that Ireland have 20 plus winners here next week. Like that, for all sorts of reasons, there has been a shift, whether it be ownership, whether it be quality of trainer, whether it be all this sort of stuff. There was no Ferrari with the handicap weights last week. I know there was a lot of other stuff going on, but it did seem to me that some of the Irish horse tricks, some of the juveniles had been, quite leniently treated, and I think that Ferrari could well come about. After the meeting, like the last 5 years here, we're looking at 15, 19, 17, 14 and 17 Irish trained winners. I think I'd want a very good reason to back some of the English trained horses, especially in the grade ones. Irish just do seem to have a major upper hand there. Look, if I thought the English horse were going to win, I'd be lumping on. I've absolutely no patriotism when it comes to trying having a bet, but I'm just this seems to me to be the reality at the moment, like that. The Willie Mullins, the Gordon Elliott, Denise Foster, whatever you want to call it, Henry de Bromhead set up, they just have so many of these top grade 1 horses. And I say, when you've got this issue now with the handicapping coming into it, I would say 20 plus Irish winners is very much in play next week.
Oof, God, it's painful to hear. It's painful to hear. Barry, it's obviously music to your ears, I'm sure. Any fancy in the Albert Bartlett?
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure about the top 2, Statler and Fakira. They've both been beaten. They're good horses, but they're not standout horses. I thought Torregraph was a horse maybe on the up, and he could have a chance. But like yourself, is it fools seldom differ or yeah, something like that maybe. But 3 under through 5, I came down as well. He's a winner of his last 4. He was a Musselburgh winner last time, which wouldn't be where you'd want to see an Albert Bartlett horse because it's way too sharp for him. But yet he still won. He's a horse on the up, and like that, I just thought he was the one. I think it'll be won by an outsider, or it'll be definitely competitive with plenty of outsiders. It's a very open race, so he was the one I come down on a horse who's on the right way and a fancy price.
There we go. Yes. In agreement at a big price, finally, because I've just gone through and tipped up a load of short price favourites. So that is music to my ears, Barry Geraghty. Thank you very much. Viewers, what do you like in the Albert Bartlett, the Ballymore or the Supreme? Are you taking on Appreciate It? Do you like a horse at a bigger price? Do you think me and Barry have gone mad with 3 under through 5? Get involved. Let us know your thoughts. We read them. We enjoy them all. So please message away. Let's move on to the novice chases. Now, when we were going through the anti-post markets and doing some anti-post previews in the shows over the last few weeks, when we sort of were choosing what to look at, we actually decided to do the novice hurdle races last week over the novice chase races because there are some really short price horses in there. But one of the most interesting races of the week for me is the Arkle on the first day. I am so looking forward to this clash with so many different elements coming into it. Shishkin at the moment is 11-10 on with Bet365 to win the Arkle for Nicky Henderson. Energumen is 9-4. All Mankind is 7-1. And they all come in here with these differing profiles, differing running styles. And Barry, I know you're a huge Energumen fan. Are you still siding with him? Do you think 9-4 is a decent enough price? And is All Mankind going to prove to be a real thorn in his side when it comes to these front-running tactics that have been discussed with him over the last few weeks and months?
Yeah, on all counts. Energumen I think is a very good horse, but I think it is a very good race. Shishkin I would have massive respect for, and he's going to have the luxury of following them round and choosing his moment. But All Mankind could annoy Energumen. But if All Mankind will need to jump a lot better than he did the last time in Warwick. So I think it's between the top two. But I'd say the value is in Energumen. I do think he's very good, and maybe Shishkin is short enough against such strong opposition. Captain Guinness is a horse who I thought the better ground is going to help him. He was running well last year in the Supreme when he was brought down. So he's a horse who has a chance going down the back of a fall. But for me, if you ask me what would you like to ride, I'd like to go on Energumen.
Over Shishkin. I'm not, Barry, is it just me, or I mean, you were there living in the moment. I don't feel like there's as much hype about Shishkin as there has been about previous Nicky Henderson trained super fast 2 mile chasers. Is that just something I'm thinking, or are you along the same lines with it in terms of just the hype out of the yard, the hype from the trainer, the buzz around him doesn't seem quite as it has been in previous years around other horses out of that yard?
He probably doesn't catch the eye the same way as Altior Sprinter did. He lacks a little bit of size. He does everything brilliantly. Jumps really well. He's very measured, but he's not just as flamboyant as the previous two. So I think he is a very good horse. And in a normal year, he would be a worthy hot favourite. But I think he's got a little bit in his plate this year. As I mentioned earlier, I think he's definitely equally as good and could be better. So I'd be going with him for the value.
Tony, are you in agreement with that? I mean, as you've just made the case that you're not going to tip up an English horse, so you're clearly not with Shishkin, Tony.
No, I would have a lot of respect for Shishkin. I think Shishkin and Energumen have achieved broadly similar levels in the novice chase careers so far, but I can understand why Shishkin is the shorter price because he's proven at Cheltenham and he's proven on better ground, and with Energumen they did swerve Christmas with him to get some softer ground run into him in Naas. Kind of a little bit annoyed at myself. I talked about backing Energumen after Naas when he was 5 or 6 to 1 each way. I was intending doing that the week of Dublin Racing Festival, but that was also the week of the Super Bowl, and I had so many bloody Super Bowl prop bets that I hadn't any money. So yeah, that didn't really work out. So I'm actually going to just take another route with this race entirely. You know, sometimes when we set these races up as the two superstars and a bit of All Mankind mixed in there as well, it doesn't always materialise, and I'm going to take a chance on Captain Guinness here. Little bit on the win, but more so on the place. He had that heart issue in Tipperary, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were kind of more gradually building him up to this maybe than maybe Energumen, who's been at his peak earlier. I also would agree wholeheartedly with Barry. The better ground might well suit him. He was in the process of getting closer to Energumen in Leopardstown than he was at Naas. Naas was heavy. I think Leopardstown was either soft to heavy or soft. You know, so it wasn't a massive shift. And going to Leopardstown soft to good to soft at Cheltenham will be another tick that way. Like he's a flatbred. He's by Arakan, and I think the better ground might bring out more improvement. And actually, to be quite honest, like, Henry the Bromhead has actually been really enthusiastic about him, which like, he isn't really. You ever hear Henry interviewed, like, oh, that's great, yeah, that's grand, yeah, usual story. He never really gives much away, but he's been quite bullish about this horse. And yeah, I think he can get it. He will like the bit of a pace. He has run well at the meeting last year. We don't know what he would have done in the Supreme, but he certainly still had a chance when he was brought down 2 out. So I'm just going to take a chance on him at whatever he is there, 14 or 16 to 1.
Captain Guinness currently 16-1 with Bet365. And Tony, before we go any further, how long has this love affair with Henry de Bromhead been going on? Is this a recent love-in?
Well, yes. No, it's I don't know if it's a Henry thing or a Rachel thing or whatever it is, but no, I would have a massive time for the yard. I just do think that their horses do tend to be a little bit. I hate that sweeping statement that horses from a certain yard are always underrated. It's not really. It's never really true. But I do think some of theirs are a little bit missed in the market. So yeah, I feel like I've backed half the stable already, and I'm fancying some of the others. So well, hopefully he'll be able to have a good meet and follow on from last year.
Could be a huge week indeed for Henry de Bromhead, and of course now, due to recent events, he also will have his name in the race card next to Envoy Allen, and the Marsh Novices Chase is where we go next. This horse he's been the second coming of jump racing for a good while now, and he's never let anyone down. Barry, you've spoken about Envoy Allen and waxed lyrical about him. You've ridden him before. I want to say, can he get beat here? But I just think the answer is no, personally. But just expand on him as a horse to viewers who haven't heard you talk about him before. Just why is he so different? What does he do that is quite just different to other horses?
He's a class act, and he goes around and he I think he bluffs everyone into thinking that he actually wants a trip. I'd say if he lined up in the Arkle, I'd probably have him in front of Shishkin and an Orgamine. He's all the pace in the world. He definitely gets 2.5 well, but he's such a lovely, laid back, relaxed way of racing. His jumping is foot perfect. He never even is remotely. You never see him meet a fence on an awkward straight. He's measured to a T. He's so relaxed, so measured. Jack is brilliant on him. And I think that laid back nature will stand to him in this change of yard. So I think he's going to go through that transition probably well enough. But he's just so much class. He won the bumper. He went around the country in the bumper and he won. He bolted up. He won the Royal Bond over 2 miles. He's won the Drinmore over 2.5. No, he's rock solid, and he's an absolute starter, right?
It's going to be very enjoyable, hopefully, for Jack Kennedy, who sticks on him for the Cheltenham Festival at this stage. Barry, is there anything else you want to give a mention to in this race, or is it just to sit back and enjoy the moment with Envoy Allen, put all the other worries behind us and just watch him do his business?
I think so. It's going to, you've Monkfish in there in the betting, you have an Orgamine. I suppose Chamblou will be next to him in the betting, and I don't think he's a danger. Chatham Street Lad could be one for a little bit of value each way, but no, Envoy Allen, he'd be home alone.
Sit back and enjoy. Tony, I mean, all joking aside, he has now moved to your love affair, Henry de Bromhead. But in all seriousness, are you personally, I mean, I'm not sure he's at the sort of price that you'll be backing him, but would it be a concern? Are you genuinely worried about this stable yard? What do you think on that topic?
No, he absolutely is the sort of price I'd be backing him. I don't want to make that.
Sorry.
No, I have absolutely no problem backing 5 to 6 shots that I think should be 1 to 2. The more the merrier. I am really interested in the stable switch and the impact it's going to have on him and the other, I think, 8 or 10 horses. I was just speaking to someone who would know far much about this than me during the week, and he said the issue would be around feed, perhaps. Maybe obviously different feed companies, maybe and different yards use different feeds, and also routine. He actually mentioned that I think he'd seen somewhere that Envoy Allen always went out in exactly the same, I think in the second lot in Gordon Elliott's, and he said in their yard that that they wouldn't plumb us any horse like that to just send them out when they were going out, which I thought was quite interesting. Staff shouldn't matter, he said. That should be a kind of an irrelevance. The other interesting thing, though, I watch Gordon Elliott's horses in the races, and to me they're always very settled. You don't see too many Elliott horses that race keenly, over race this type of stuff. Henry de Bromhead, different story. His horses are notably strong travellers, and also Willie Mullins' horses can be very, very keen there, and they do finish off the race. So that's interesting. These horses that have gone, if they've gone on the day that they said they were going and they're going to Cheltenham, they would have 2 good pieces of work to do between now and the meeting. So, you know, the work routine will, I assume, be different in those yards because they're producing horses that race in a different style. That's going to be interesting. I shouldn't joke about this, but Sir Gerhard, maybe we're not going to see Sir Gerhard until the 2022 Supreme, knowing how long sometimes it takes horses to settle into Willie Mullins. Is he actually going to run in the champion? I shouldn't joke. I'm sure he'll manage to keep him right between now and then. But I think it's interesting. I think they're very different training operations. Maybe it won't make any impact at all. Maybe Envoy Allen is totally laid back. He certainly seems that way. But I wouldn't be one bit surprised if some of these horses underperform at the meeting, and that's the excuse that's given, that they haven't eaten up or they've travelled badly or some sort of slight alteration in routine. The one thing I would point out, say for argument's sake, which is the first one of them to run, Ballyadam's the first one to run the Supreme. Let's say he runs abysmally. Will he then have a knock-on effect on Envoy Allen? He's the other one that's joined the Bromhead yard, on his price. You know, they're unrelated things really. Every horse is individual. It's funny the way the markets operate at the festival. There was one season there, I think Willie Mullins had loads of fancied horses the first 2 days, and he didn't have a winner.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember on the show, I think it was a general 6-4, 7-4 for the Ryanair, all fortnight before, and very, very solid. After the first 2 days, I think on the evening of Wednesday, he was like 137-2 for the Ryanair. I think Willie might have won the first race. He might have won the first two that day. I think Arkle might have won the JLT at the time, and he went off 6-4, 7-4, and duly won. So it's just something to bear in mind. If one of them does flop, which look, the chances are, whether it's Rainbow, Gordon, Elliott or not, one or two of them will probably flop anyway. That's just the nature of horse racing. So it's an interesting other layer to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah, the markets could move in the week big style. So just to confirm, you are with Envoy Allen, Tony?
Yes. I think he's much the best. Yeah, brilliant horse.
I will be sitting back and enjoying that very much, that race. Let's move on to the Brown Advisory, where we've got another relatively short priced horse, not as short as Envoy Allen, but Monkfish is currently 6-4 on with Bet365, and next best in the betting, a mile away from him, is Next Destination at 10-1. The horse who's got all the class but had all those problems along the way. Barry, what are you thinking here? Are you willing to take Monkfish on? I am struggling to pick holes in him myself.
No, a little bit like Envoy Allen, and I suppose then he doesn't have the complication of the change in stable. So no, I think Monkfish is rock solid. It'd be very hard to oppose him. Of the rest, I thought Sporting John is a horse. He won well in the Scilly Isles. He would be entitled to improve from that. It was only his second run, but he could be value each way, Sporting John. But I wouldn't be fancying him to beat the favourite maybe in the place market. But Sporting John would be of interest.
Sporting John currently 12-1 with Bet365 for the Brown Advisory. Just Barry, before I move away from you on the topic of Monkfish, I tweeted, and At The Races tweeted this amazing shot of him sort of just warming up at home at Willie Mullins's a few weeks ago in slow motion, and it sort of gained loads of attention. And I guess it made me realise that you'll have seen him up close and personal, I'm sure, a few times, either on the racetrack or potentially down at Willie's. But I think on this show, I've called him a bit of a sort of, dare I say, hunter. Like, he's got a sort of like quite huntery way about him. And then I saw this shot of him and I was like, Jesus Christ, I mean, he is some athlete when you see him move like that, and then the way in which he jumps as well. I mean, we wax lyrical about Envoy Allen, but he isn't far off him, I don't think, in terms of a sort of perfect novice chaser at this stage.
You must have a very flashy hunter, Vanessa, because no, I think.
Well, you know me, you know.
No, Monkfish, himself and Envoy Allen are the two superstars, two gorgeous horses, and both very similar in their way, very laid back, very measured. They've come from the point-to-point field. They just seem to know their job, and they're rock solid. And have pace. He has pace. He's not a slow horse. He dropped back to 2.5 the last day, and he won even more impressively. We thought maybe he was going to inconvenience him to some degree, and he was more impressive. So no, he's an exciting one.
Exciting indeed. Tony, where are you going in the Brown Advisory? Are you a Monkfish fan as well? Are we all on the Monkfish train?
Yeah, move it along there. He should win.
Nice, happy days. Let's move to the National Hunt Chase then. Tony, let's stick with you. At the moment, Royal Pagal is in there at 13-8. Galvin is next best at 130 with Bet365. Tony, where are you going in this? And well, actually, just to start with, do you think Royal Pagal should run here or in the Gold Cup, or do you not care because he's trained in England?
He'd have a massive chance here. No, oh God, he'd be solid here. I don't have massive strong opinion on this. The horse I was looking at was a Scary at 10, but exchange betting would suggest he may be going somewhere else for the sponsor's own race. Thing with Galvin, I would be a little worried with Galvin stretching out to 3-6. He showed plenty of speed last year when he was running in the old Novices handicap race. They were aiming him with the Galway plate. He might get it, but I don't really see him improving for it. So he might be a little bit vulnerable, but no, I when I looked at this about a week ago, I liked the Scary 10, but it seems he's going elsewhere. So again, I'm just going to have to go back with a little bit of a rethink. But no, I would have massive respect for the favourite. He ran to a very high level now in Haydock in January.
Indeed. Barry, Galvin would have been the ride of Jamie Codd, and punters really latch onto that. But do you echo Tony's thoughts, or are you a Galvin fan?
No, I'd be with Tony. I think Royal Pagal is the one to beat. That was a slight concern just coming back from such heavy ground in Haydock to better ground at Cheltenham. But he won nicely in Kempton, albeit it was soft ground. But Kempton soft would be a lot different from what you would have had in Haydock. So I think the ground won't be that big of an issue for him. So no, I think he's the one to beat and a worthy favourite. Of the others, I thought Secret Reprieve, if he lined up here, would have a chance. He's an improver, obviously won the Welsh National really well, so he's a horse on the up. Pensiful Aled, who disappointed last time in Nace, had he not put in that run, I think you would see him at a shorter price. And if he does turn up here, I can't imagine he'll be going unless he's in the full of his health, and he just didn't jump like a horse who was happy with himself the last day. So if he turns up, I think he could be value.
Value, he's currently 14-1 with Bet365, pencil full of lead. Put that in a notebook. Viewers, what do you reckon to our Novice Chase selections? Do you like what we're saying? Are you with us? Are you against us? Get involved, please. Are you with Envoy Allen, Monkfish, all the shorties, Shishkin as well? Tell us who you're backing. Tell us who you're laying. We want to hear from you. Let's move on. We're rattling through these grade ones, and we're going to move on to the Ryanair next, which is a wide open affair, but a very interesting contest. I struggled to land on one here, but Tony Allaho at the moment is 5-1 favourite with Bet365, closely followed by Min at 6-1, has to rebound from being pulled up last time out. Melon, that's the way I decided to go in the end, but my God, you can make cases for a good few in here. Who are you siding with in the Ryanair, Tony?
Yeah, brilliant race this. I've sided with Fakir Dudery. I'm not sure if he's good enough to be quite honest, but I think what he is doing is he's coming into it of a lovely preparation. He has potential for more up and trip, and he's run well every time he's run at the track. Some of the others have a few little holes in them one way or the other, and I can see him being involved anyway. I say there might be something that just a little bit more ability than him in the finish, but I can see him getting involved. Allaho to me just has always been a little bit shorter than I would have liked. Torres was good, but my way of looking at it was I just much prefer to back the horse that was second to Melly May back against Mayors than I'd like to back. Allaho, Min, don't like the preparation. He was jumping it all well at Leopardstown. He is 10 now. Look, he acts fine round Cheltenham, but I've always thought he's a little bit better elsewhere. His absolute peak performance was Aintree. I'd say his second best performance was probably Leopardstown. So this does look a stronger race than last year. Mellon's one that you could definitely see him placing. That's kind of what he does. Place only bet wouldn't be the worst thing with him. Wouldn't bother with the win part of that. Imperial Aura, again, he's at a less than ideal prep. Lovely upward curve on him, but I do think he needs to improve kind of the figure here. And you've also got St. Calvers again. The prep hasn't been great, but yeah, I'm kind of in this case going with the horse that has the prep from the yard that's coming nicely into form, and still has a little bit more improvement in him. He is only 6, so hopefully Fakir Dudery give me a bit of a run for my money.
Fakir Dudery is currently 8-1 with Bet365 for the Ryanair, and Tony doesn't like to sort of blow his own trumpet, but he actually tipped this horse up post the Dublin Racing Festival, and he was a much bigger price, and he was keen on him then, and he's sticking with him now. So all aboard Fakir Dudaris. Barry, where are you going here? Can you give me any sort of hope that Mellon can finally put his head in front? He just got to bob his head down just at the right moment. Can he do that?
Yeah. Well, he's had a few attempts. He was second in 2 champion hurdles. He couldn't get his head down at the right time then either. So it'd be hard to stick by Mellon. But I'm jumping on Tony's bandwagon. I'm with Fakir Dudaris. And as a 6-year-old, he ran in the Arkle last year as a 5, was a great run. But as a 6-year-old, he's a horse who's potentially still on the up, and it was a great run the last time by Chacun Poissoir. So I think he's the one. St. Calvados, he unseated last time in Sandown, having ran a little bit keen in Kempton and just didn't get home with the King George. So I think you can easily forgive him those 2 runs. And for me, he was a little bit unlucky in this race last year. So I could make a case for St. Calvados as well.
Right, so that's 2 votes for Fakir Dudaris and me with Mellon, but now the boys have obviously just put me off that entirely. But anyway, I'll stick with my guns for the time being. Let's move on to the Mares Hurdle. Concertista is 11-10 with Bet365, and Roxana is next best at 3-1. Roxana, who I hoped was going for the Stayers Hurdle, but it looks like they're leaning towards the Mares Hurdle, which I find a touch disappointing. Tony, I think weeks ago on Off the Fence, you mentioned that you're a big Concertista fan. Are you still with her?
Yeah, to me she'd be the one at the thin end of the market. I'd be quite happy back in. Would have been probably NYLN before the stable switch, but Concertista, she just has taken off since the Dawn Run last year. She just looks a different horse then, and she just has kicked on again this year. All ground seems to come alike to her. Slow pace, fast pace, doesn't seem to matter. She's trained by the man who's unbelievable record in the race. Roxana has had an amazing season. I give her credit. She has done really well, but it's all been at 3 miles. I think last season she was a bit below par the whole way through the season, and it was all because she was basically running over in around the 24 trip. Her big effort a couple of years back came at entry over 3 miles rather than 2.5 when she won this, when she was a bit fortunate to win it. So I think she's kind of a posable second favourite. Concertista, whatever she is there, 11-10, 5-4, she looked maybe a little bit more like an odds-on shot to me. With the trainer with the amazing record in the race. Of the rest, is there something there to get into the shake-up? I think the horse that was second to Concertista, Manila Melody, the last twice has probably improved this season, and it might be a little bit masked by the fact that she keeps running against Concertista. I think this is her trip. Forced a good pace at Leopardstown and stuck at it quite well. The concern with her is that if she was going to lead, she might burn herself out a little bit. She raced very keen at this meeting last year. It's actually her only bad run ever was this meeting last year. You can forgive that or you can hold that against her, but overall her profile is one of very good consistency. Black Tears is another one. She doesn't win now. She's a bit of a melon of Mares Hurdles, I suppose, if you like. But she is very good at placing, very good at Cheltenham. I know she won a punch down the last day, but that was, she was 2-5 there. She really should have. But yeah, she's one that would have been trained to gain to peak in the spring, and yeah, in the place markets she would be one of the more interesting ones. Especially, as I say, I'm not really keen on Roxana, so if you're maybe knocking out the second favourite, you're taking out a good chunk of it there.
Yeah, you absolutely are. But the third favourite you get to would be Dame de Compagnie, who has made me look like a fool before. Barry Geraghty, thanks to you. Can she step up to this sort of level if she goes here? I think with Ellie May going for the Mare's Chase option, it looks like Dame de Compagnie may step back down to hurdling for the Cheltenham Festival. I'm not entirely sure if that is in any way confirmed yet, but that'd be my guess with where she goes. Would you give her any sort of chance in a race like this up against a mare like Concertista?
I think she would have a chance. I think she'd struggle to deal with Concertista, but I'd like to think she's more paced than Roxana. So she would have a squeak, but I think she'd struggle with Concertista. She's very good. She's a nice mare. She's going here on the back of a fall last time, or brought down, should I say, in Sandown, which isn't ideal, but I wouldn't have any worries about that. She's a lot of experience over hurdles. She won the Coral last year. She has a chance of, as I said, being second.
Okay, chance of being second to Concertista though. That's the way you're going, Barry.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, let's rock and roll onto the bumper. We've now got Kilcrut at the top of the betting at 15-8 and Sir Gerhard next best at 2-1 with Bet365. I want to take on Kilcrut, and I want to take him on with his now stable companion, Sir Gerhard. Tony, which way are you going in the bumper? Are you looking elsewhere here?
No, I'm quite happy. I agree with you, Vanessa, there. I like Sir Gerhard. I think the thing with him is the Ryle performance on the times was ridiculous compared to some of the horses elsewhere in the card. Like the two horses who he compared very well to were Quilixios and Ballyadam, both running over hurdles. Both of them are Grade 1 winners since, so that looks very positive. Obviously his own bumper form and Den Ryle worked out. Navan wasn't as impressive, but the run of the race was not one that was going to make him impressive. And I think if he had got a pace set up like Kilcrit got at the Dublin Racing Festival, I think he probably would have been able to produce similar. But they are similar prices in the market. I would just have a preference for him. I went looking around for something at a price, but there wasn't really yet. Maybe Brooklyn Glory, she might improve a little bit for the run. She certainly, the first time she won her bumper, I think it was in the Stowe Limidon, it was much better performance in Cork. And maybe she needed a little bit at February their time, but no, I do think this looks a proper race between the big two, and you would kind of be expecting them to be banged there.
Barry, my thoughts on taking on Kilcrut are just that often with these things, when they are too good to be true, they often prove to be that way, and obviously the pace of that Leopardstown bumper race has been dissected well. I just think Sir Gerhard's form, as Tony has pointed out, has a more solid feel to it. Where would you be going in the bumper, and have you got any whispers from other places, other yards at a bigger price? These horses are all improving at different times. Anything else in the market that's taking your fancy?
No, well, I'd start off with the two horses at the top. I would agree with what Tony says. Sir Gerhard, I think that was a great run in Down Ryle, obviously, and his win in Navan when he beat, let's be clear about it, who was second to Kilcrut. But the race in Leopardstown was a war, where the race in Navan was running at a slower pace, and I thought Sir Gerhard showed great pace in the straight. Like that as well, he's very relaxed, races behind the bridle, but he finished off really well. So you could take a chance on him. Kilcrut just mightn't be all he's meant to be. And on a sharper track like Cheltenham, I don't think that's going to play to his strengths. Of the others, a horse who I've ridden a bit of work on and was very impressive in Navan when he won his only bumper was 3 Strikes Life. He works like a really good horse, and he was very impressive. You haven't got an awful lot to go, and he's only had the one run, so he's going to lack experience in comparison to the others, but he definitely feels like a smart horse.
Good. Currently 10-1 with Bet365 there. That covers the bumper. Let's rattle on to the Triumph. Again, we did talk about this last week, but let's recap what we thought. Barry, I know you're sticking with Zana here, aren't you? Currently 5-2 with Bet365. Any views changed from last week?
No, not at all. I think he's rock solid, but I do like the Alan King horse a lot, and I think they're two very good juveniles. And I see the two of them coming to the fore. But Zana here, it's hard not to like him. He's done everything he's been asked to do. He's a lovely way of racing. He's very professional, plenty of pace. So no, I wouldn't be rushing away from him.
No, Tritonic's the 9-4 favourite currently with Bet365. And Tony, which way are you going in this race for those who missed last week's episode?
Yeah, I'm also with Sana here. Been with Sana here since after Fairy House. Just one point I would like to raise about Quilixios. He's a horse that may not want the ground to dry out too much. He was taken out, I think, in Goran when he was initially declared for his first maiden hurdle on ground that was good to yield, and then he won punches I think was soft, and then just the fact that the trainer was planning to take him to Chepstow for the finale would say to me that he might prefer a little bit of cut in the ground. Like, you're always really getting soft when you go into that race meeting, so just if it was to dry out, that might be a concern for him if you were thinking that way.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you very much, Tony. Let's move on to the Mares Novices hurdle. Quick rattle through them, because Hookup, it's a wide open contest, but Hookup is currently the 5-1 favourite with Bet365. Barry, where did you fall when you took a look at this?
Yeah, well, there's not a lot between the top three in the market. They've been running against each other and clashing and beating each other, but I thought Hookup, probably a shade unlucky that she missed the last day against Royal Kahala, and I think she'd be better for better ground. So I just on the ground, I thought that the other two, Royal Kahala and Rosie's Millie, as they call her, she Rosie, yeah, I thought the two of them enjoyed soft ground, so I wasn't so sure about them. I thought Hookup might appreciate better ground. I just sided with that, but it's there's not a lot between the three of those on the book.
Hookup currently 5-1, like I say, with Bet365. Tony, were you looking elsewhere, or are you with Hookup here as well, like Barry?
Yeah, I thought this actually, I had a good look at this the other day, really interesting race. If I thought Hookup could jump, I would give her a chance, but she's repeating. I know we're laughing at this, but her jumping is just persistently bad. She jumped terrible in Triumph Hurdle last year. I think she was okay in Fairyhouse and she won a maiden hurdle. Pretty poor the day behind Ryanair and absolutely awful at Dublin Racing Festival. Like, this is just her now at the minute, so I think you're kind of accepting that when you're backing her. She's going to miss a couple. I think Barry's point is well made about the other two on the soft ground. It's interesting. Rosie's Hollow to me is the horse that is improving. She is one of these that seemed to miss time, or her runs are well spaced out, but now she had 3 runs back to back. She ran well at Naas, improved at the Fairyhouse the first day, and was better again at Fairyhouse. She might well improve again for a 4th start of the year. But the thing is, the conditions have really swung against her. Royal Kahala is going to be £9 better off with her for Fairyhouse, which is a hell of a lot, just by the nature of the races that they've won. Royal Kahala has won races, but they haven't been graded hurdles. She's interesting on that kind of weights pull. I also listened to something the trainer was saying, where he said he'd sorted 1 or 2 things out since Fairyhouse, and I can kind of see that, because the one thing that she had done at Fairyhouse was that she didn't travel, and in a previous race she'd been notably strong traveller. Now, she still got there and she still battled, and she had a pretty good attitude, but I just wonder, was she a little bit below par? I feel I'm going to back one of these on the day, leaning towards Royal Kahala, but I've actually taken a poke at something at a much bigger price. Oh, what a surprise, Henry de Brom had Rachel Blackmore. Anyway, Tell Me Something Girl. Similar preparation to Concertista had for the race last year. She was third in the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival. Now, I don't think it was quite as deep as a renewal as it was last year, but I think there were still positives to take from the run. She was coming off, I think, 140 or so day break. She hadn't run since the previous September, October time. She also got caught a bit further back than ideal. The pace kind of stuck a little bit there when Heaven Help Us and Global Equity were up there the whole way. Global Equity has come out and run very well in the listed race since. There's 1 or 2 other ones out, like I think Rescue Package was going to run okay at Taurus before she fell. The Getaway Star has run quite well also. I think she's kind of in the mix. The big thing about her is the ground. She had an initial go at Novice Hurdle, and I think 2 seasons back on soft ground, and she just didn't seem to operate at all. But when she got a bit of decent ground last summer, she was really good. Back at Leopardstown there, it was soft to heavy. I think the fact that she handled that so well, to me, would say that she's improved. I could just see her getting into the mix. In a race that is open, it's usually, I think Willie Mullins has won it each and every of the 5 years that it's been run, but his team this year, Hookup kind of looked there. Galwaz has been beaten by Rosie Hollow and Royal Kahala. His team might be just that little bit weaker this year. Maybe there's something there to price. And for me, I had a go at Tell Me Something Girl just over the weekend.
Yes, Tony Keenan, that is what we like to hear. Tell Me Something Girl is currently 20-1 with Bet365. Lovely tip, I'll take that indeed. You make a very good case. Let's move on to, well, before we move on, actually, viewers, do let us know, do you like the sound of Tell Me Something Girl at 20-1 in the Mayor's Novices Hurdle? You can't argue with Tony Keenan, can you? But elsewhere, do get involved with us. Let us know what you fancy in the Ryanair, in the Mayor's Hurdle, in the Bumper, in the Triumph. Who do you want to take on and who don't you want to take on? Do get involved, please. Let's move on to some handicap fancies, because we're not going to go through all the handicaps, but obviously both Barry and Tony have picked out a few selections for you. So Barry, it's over to you first. Give us something for the handicaps, please. Where were you looking? Who caught your eye?
I thought Grand Roy ran well in Naas behind Bacchison, and he'd Beacon Edge in third. The Coral Hurdle still stepping up a trip on better ground, I thought was all in his favour, and he's a horse that Nicky Henderson liked a lot before he was sold, and he was keen to keep him. So I thought he's a nice type for that race. He's plenty of weight now, but it's a race that often suits horses towards the top end, and I think he might have a little bit in hand. The other I liked was Champagne Platinum. I thought he ran well in Haydock in the Pertemps final, and I think a bigger, stiffer track like Cheltenham was going to help him. So they'd be the two for me in the 2 handicaps.
Okay, Tony, over to you for some handicap fancies, please, or anything else you want to mention, by the way, before we wrap up proceedings. Where are we looking in some of the handicaps?
I'm going to have to be quite honest. I have not gone through these handicaps in full detail. Jesus, life's not worth living if you're going through 70 or 80 horses in the Cheltenham handicap at this stage. I know people love doing it and trying to find one, but I'm quite happy to wait until the 48 hour stage. But I have backed two that I kind of was looking at a little bit. I backed Linwood Gold for the Pertemps final. The two Irish qualifiers this year, the Leopardstown one sort of had a higher rating ceiling, higher rated horses in it, but I think the Punchestown one, while lower rated horses, I think they might have been better handicapped horses. I would have a bit of time for the winner Atlantic Shore. He's thriving at the minute. Milner chipped really well the time before at Navan, and Dalton Highway is a horse that I think would still have a little bit of scope. Linwood Gold conveniently scraped into sixth there. We all know sixth in an Irish qualifier can be a sort of an interesting position to fill. He was coming off a break on ground that he wouldn't really love, and I think there's definitely untapped potential with him. He did a lot of racing at 2 miles over hurdles last year, but he's a real stayer on the flat. Like he was staying on at the end of the English Cesarewitch over 18 furlongs last year. So I think he's a bit untapped going up to 3. Going back on decent ground. Jessica Harrington has never won the Pertemps final, but she's had 5 runners in it, and 3 of them have finished in the first 5, which is pretty good considering it's such a competitive race. So I do like it. I do like him. Yeah, she hit the bar a couple of times, and she'd won there last year that would have been fancied for it, that just missed I think with a setback, Silver Sheen. And the other one I've backed is one in the Martin Pipe, Gabinaco, trained by Gavin Cromwell. He's the Grade 1 form from Naas, the Bob Ollinger Blue Lord form. I think this kind of race will suit him. I just don't know that he's quite up to graded level against the novice horse, but going back to a handicap might suit him. He ran in the Ladbrokes hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival, but he's dropped out. I think with the idea, the trainer sort of mentioned in an interview before, I want to get him big field experience, but he absolutely ploughed the second last, and he was always kind of too far back for a horse that wants further. But he stayed on a bit in the straight. I think that experience won't be lost on him, and they have a good stable jockey there, Conor McNamara, to be well used to riding him, and he'd be maybe suited for that race. Now, just on something completely unrelated, if it's any other business at this stage, I just do want to mention something quite serious. I know we're always throwing this at the end, every gambling, betting related content thing does mention this, but just about the whole idea of responsible gambling. Look, Cheltenham can be a kind of a crazy week, and this year's going to be a very different week. Like, obviously huge social element to it. Years gone by, you know, maybe going to the racecourse with your pals, or going maybe down to the betting shop, do a few bets with your pals, or going to the pub. A lot of that, all that probably is gone now, and people are going to kind of be at home maybe, and you know, maybe that can be dangerous for people. Just to remind people, like, look, there is another race after Cheltenham. It's only another race meeting. Enjoy it, but try to keep your head. And I know we do trot out these trite messages sometimes about responsible gambling and all this type of stuff, but look, I've had bad Cheltenhams, and you'd be inclined to go in the chase and one thing and another. You know, it rarely works out, and I'd say it's just anyone having a bet. Just keep your head, plan out what you're doing, stick to it. If you win, magnificent. If you don't be gambling it, and you don't have to lose as such.
Wise words, Tony Keenan. Wise words indeed. Before we move on to just wrap up the show, I just wanted to ask you, Tony, about Ellie May. For me, she's one of the naps. Well, she's my nap of the meeting, or one of, which we're going to get to very shortly. I absolutely love her, and I think in the Mayor's Chase, she's rock solid at the head of the market. Can you please just tell me that you agree with me?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Such an excellent run there against the Geldings. The last day. Just one other interesting horse I will mention in the Mayor's Chase. I see there's a stable switch there going on. Augusta Gold seems to have left Magnus Mullins and joined Willie Mullins there in the last couple of weeks, and she retains her entry. And she's a decent chaser, and wasn't best suited, I'd say, be dropping back over hurdles at Navan the last day, got caught in the wrong part of the track. I'd just be interested to see if she goes. Although with Willie, like, her next run will be probably pissing up in the Punchestown Grand National in 2022.
Okay, one to keep an eye on, but it's Ellie May all the way for me in that race. Right, to wrap up proceedings, we aren't doing tracker time this week. Instead, we are going to give you our naps. lays of the meeting and each way bets of the meeting. I will go first so that no one else, so it can't be claimed that I copied anyone else. Thank you very much. I am taking on Gaylord Dumanil and also Kilcrut in the bumper. As for my naps, I'm going Epitant and Ellie May. Bit unoriginal, I know, but I tried to steer away from the absolute short price favourites. And then each way, 3 under through 5 on the basis that he's 20 or whatever for the Albert Bartlett, and I do really like him, so an each way bet there. 3 under through 5 for me. If I could say his name, then that would be helpful. Tony, I'm well aware this isn't your favourite part of the show, but please can you give us a nap, a lay, and an each way bet?
Yeah, I just absolutely hate this question. Like, who the hell bets like this? Like, for God's sake, like, I couldn't tell you the last time I laid a horse. Like, there's no such thing as a recreational layout. We know that. Most people just bet horses. But anyway, and the prices change, and I'm trying all winter to try and mention horses that I think will shorten and one thing or another. So I've done this on the basis of the price they are now, rather than something maybe just mentioned previous. My nap would be Concertista. My each way shot Storyteller, and I say I'm not laying, but the 2 horses there that I'm kind of against that I've mentioned are Hookup and Epitant.
Oh, taking on one of mine. Barry, same question to you, please.
Yeah, well, I'd put up just the original, put up Contratista as well. And Chacon Pro Soir, and I couldn't split Bungfisher and Violin either. My each ways, I thought Soaring Glory. I'm with you on 3 through 5, or whatever they call them. 3 under through 5.
Nearly.
Yeah.
We tried, so that's the main thing there, Barry. We'll just move on.
Soaring Glory and Sporting John, and my lay was Honeysuckle.
Oh yeah, taking on Honeysuckle, right. Well, that rounds off proceedings then for the Off the Fence Cheltenham Festival preview. We hope you've enjoyed it. We know full well that we haven't done every single race, but we also know full well that you viewers have got lives to live out there. So hopefully we have pointed you in the right direction of a few winners. We've put up some bigger price fancies and some shorties as well, but hopefully there's something in there for everyone. Thank you very much to Barry Geraghty as always, and to Tony Keenan, and thank you guys for watching. This was the Off the Fence Cheltenham Festival preview, brought to you in association with Bet365.